The priest cleared his throat, a nervous sound that echoed in the silent cathedral. "If anyone here knows of any just cause why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony," the priest stammered, his eyes darting to the armed guards lining the walls. "Speak now or forever hold your peace." I squeezed my eyes shut. "Hold your peace," I told myself. "Do it for your father. Do it for the family name." I stood at the altar, encased in a corset that squeezed the breath from my lungs. Beside me stood Governor Silas, a man with cold, clammy hands and a heart made of ledger paper. He squeezed my hand, his ring digging into my flesh. "Silence," Silas whispered to the priest with a smug smile. "Proceed." No one would dare object. The priest opened his mouth to continue. Boom! The heavy oak doors of the cathedral didn't just open. They exploded inward. Splinters of wood and iron flew through the air. The crowd screamed, ducking for cover. Smoke billowed into the nave, backlit by the blinding Caribbean sun. From the smoke, a figure emerged. He walked with the heavy, rhythmic thud of sea boots. He wore a long black coat tattered by wind and sword. A pistol was in one hand, a cutlass in the other. He was covered in blood, none of it his own. The guards raised their muskets, but their hands shook. They knew that silhouette. Every sailor in the Atlantic feared it. Captain Killian Drake, the pirate king. He stopped in the center of the aisle. He ignored the muskets aimed at his chest. His eyes, dark as a storm at midnight, locked onto mine. "I object." Killian's voice cut through the chaos, deep and rough like gravel. "Killian," I whispered, my heart stopping. "You're dead. I heard you were getting married, Elena," he said, walking closer, stepping over the debris. "And I realized I never got an invitation." He stopped at the base of the altar steps. He looked at the governor, then at me. "Besides," Killian smirked, a dangerous, terrifyingly handsome expression, "you promised yourself to me 3 years ago on the docks of Tortuga, and a pirate never forgets a debt." 3 hours earlier, I was staring at my reflection in the mirror, wishing I was anyone else. "You look beautiful, my lady," my maid whispered, adjusting the lace veil. "I look like a sacrifice," I corrected. My father, Lord Sterling, entered the room. He looked tired. "Elena, please. Governor Silas is a powerful man. This union secures our safety. It wipes out our debts." "He hangs pirates for sport, father," I said, turning to him. "He hangs children if they steal an apple." "He maintains order," father argued. "Forget that sailor boy, Elena. He's gone, drowned at sea. You need to live in the real world." Killian. I hadn't spoken his name in 2 years. We met when he was just a deckhand, and I was just a rebellious noble's daughter sneaking out to the harbor. We fell in love under the stars, hidden behind crates of rum. He promised to come back for me with enough gold to buy my freedom. Then his ship vanished in a storm. I mourned him. I buried my heart in the ocean. And when Silas offered to save my family in exchange for my hand, I accepted. A body without a heart is easy to sell. But now, looking at the man standing in the church aisle, breathing, bleeding, and burning with life, I realized my heart hadn't died. It had just been waiting. "Guards!" Governor Silas shrieked, his face turning purple. Kill him where he stands." 50 royal guards raised their muskets. Killian didn't flinch. He whistled, a sharp, piercing sound. Crash. The stained glass windows above shattered as ropes swung in. Pirates, dozens of them, descended from the balconies, landing on the guards. Chaos erupted. Swords clashed against bayonets. The screams of the nobles filled the air. Killian didn't look at the battle. He walked up the steps to the altar. Silas drew his ceremonial sword. "You filth! She is mine!" Killian laughed. He parried Silas's clumsy strike with lazy ease. With a flick of his wrist, he sent Silas's sword flying across the church. He grabbed the governor by his expensive cravat and headbutted him. Silas collapsed, unconscious and bleeding on the marble floor. Killian sheathed his cutlass. He stood before me, He smelled of gunpowder, salt, and sweat. He was terrifying. He was magnificent. "You're late," I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Currents were bad," he said softly, reaching out to wipe a tear with a rough, calloused thumb. "And I had to fight half the British Navy to get into the harbor." He looked at the wedding dress. He frowned. "White doesn't suit you, Elena. You always looked better in red." "They said you drowned," I choked out. "They said the black horizon sank. It takes more than water to kill me, love." He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. "I told you I'd come back. I told you I'd make you a queen. I just didn't specify which kingdom." "Killian!" a pirate shouted from the nave. "The reinforcements are coming. We have to go." Killian pulled back. He offered me his hand. The hand of a criminal. The hand of the man I loved. "The governor offers you a cage of gold," Killian said, his voice intense. "I offer you a life on the run. Wind, danger, and the open sea. I offer you nothing but myself." He looked into my soul. "Make your choice, Elena. Stay here and become a statue. Or take my hand and become a legend." I looked at my father cowering under a pew. I looked at Silas, bleeding on the floor. I looked at the stifling walls of the church. Then I looked at Killian. I grabbed my heavy skirts and ripped the fabric so I could run. I took his hand. "Take me," I said. Killian grinned, a smile that promised trouble. "Hold on tight." He scooped me up into his arms as if I weighed nothing. "Make a path," Killian roared to his crew. He ran down the aisle, carrying me through the brawl. Pirates cheered as we passed. "To the docks." We burst out of the cathedral doors into the blinding sun. The carriage that was supposed to take me to the governor's mansion was waiting. Killian kicked the driver off. "Sorry, mate, private party." He threw me into the carriage and jumped into the driver's seat. He cracked the whip. The horses bolted. "Killian!" I screamed, holding onto the window frame as we careened around a corner on 2 wheels. "Do you know how to drive a carriage? It's just a ship with wheels," he shouted back, laughing maniacally. Musket balls splintered the wood of the carriage. The royal guard was chasing us on horseback. "They're gaining on us," I yelled. "Take the reins," Killian shouted, climbing back into the carriage cabin with me. "What?" "Take the reins, Elena. I need to shoot." I climbed over the seat, grabbing the leather straps. I was a lady. I had been taught embroidery and piano. I had never driven 4 panicked horses through a crowded city. "Hiya!" I screamed, snapping the reins. I steered us through the market square, scattering chickens and fruit stalls. Behind me, I heard the boom of Killian's pistols. "Nice driving, love," he yelled. "Turn left at the fountain. That leads to the cliff. Trust me." I turned left. The road ended. Ahead was a sheer drop into the harbor waters. "Killian," I screamed. "There's no road." "Stop the carriage," he commanded. I pulled back hard. The horses reared, skidding to a halt inches from the edge. Killian grabbed me, pulling me out of the carriage. "Where is the ship?" I panicked, looking at the empty ocean. "Look down," he pointed. Below us, in the water, the massive black hull of a ship was passing. The black horizon. Its masts were nearly level with the cliff. "You want us to jump?" I asked, horrified. "I'll catch you," he promised. I looked at the guards closing in behind us. I looked at the drop. I grabbed his hand. "If we die," I yelled, "I'm killing you." "Fair enough." We jumped. For a second, we were flying. The wind roared in my ears. My veil ripped away, floating into the sky. We hit the canvas of the mainsail, sliding down, slowing our fall, before landing hard on the deck in a tangle of limbs and white silk. Sailors cheered. "Captain on deck!" Killian groaned, sitting up. He helped me up. My dress was ruined. My hair was a mess, and I was shaking. "Welcome aboard, my lady," Killian bowed theatrically. I looked back at the cliff. The guards were watching helplessly. I looked at the open horizon ahead. I started to laugh. It was a hysterical, wild sound. Killian watched me, his expression softening. He reached out and pulled the pins from my hair, letting it fall loose. "No more cages, Elena," he whispered. "No more cages," I agreed. But as the ship turned toward the open sea, the smile faded from Killian's face. He looked at the horizon with a worry he tried to hide. "What is it?" I asked. "Silas won't let this go," Killian said darkly. "He won't just send the local guard. He'll call the admiral. We just started a war, Elena." I took his hand, lacing my fingers with his. "Then let them come," I said, feeling the pirate blood I never knew I had waking up. "Let them try to take me back." The adrenaline of the escape faded as the sun began to set, replaced by the crushing reality of where I was. I was standing on the deck of a pirate ship, surrounded by 40 of the roughest men I had ever seen, wearing a ruined wedding dress that cost more than their lives combined. The crew stared. They didn't cheer anymore. Now they just looked at me like I was a ghost. Or a curse. Sailors are superstitious. A woman on a ship is bad luck. A bride on a ship? That's an omen of doom. "Show's over," Killian barked, sensing the mood shift. "Get back to stations, unless you want to explain to the quartermaster why the sails aren't trimmed." The men scrambled. Killian turned to me. The wild grin from the carriage was gone. He looked exhausted. "You can't stay on deck in that," he said, gesturing to my torn lace. "You look like a target. Come with me." I followed him down into the belly of the ship. The air grew heavy, smelling of timber and old wine. He opened the door at the end of the hall, the captain's quarters. It was surprisingly orderly. Maps were pinned to the table. A wall of books lined one side. A massive bed took up the other. "Here," Killian rummaged through a chest and tossed a bundle of clothes at me. "Put these on. They belonged to my former cabin boy. He was small." I held up the rough linen shirt and leather breeches. "You want me to wear trousers?" "I want you to be able to run if we get boarded," Killian said seriously. He turned his back to give me privacy. "And Elena? Burn the dress. It's a beacon for the Navy." I stripped off the layers of silk and corset. Taking a breath for the first time in hours felt like freedom. I put on the pirate clothes. They were scratchy and loose, but when I tied the sash around my waist, I felt different. I wasn't Lady Sterling anymore. "You can turn around," I said. Killian turned. He stopped. His eyes swept over me, darkening with an intensity that made my knees weak. "Well," he murmured, stepping closer, "you make a convincing pirate, my lady, though you're far too pretty for this life." "I chose this life," I reminded him. "You chose me," he corrected. "The life is just the penalty." He walked to the map table, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. "We are heading for the Sirens Archipelago. The Navy's heavy ships can't navigate the reefs there. We'll be safe for a few days." And then I took the glass. It was rum, strong enough to strip paint. And then Killian looked at the map, his expression grim. "Silas will send Admiral Vance, the Wolf of the Sea. He doesn't catch pirates, Elena. He sinks them. We are hunting for a ghost now." Night fell. The ship rocked gently, a lullaby I hadn't heard in years. "Where do I sleep?" I asked, looking around the cabin. "You take the bed," Killian said, grabbing a blanket and a pillow. "I'll take the floor." "Don't be ridiculous," I argued. "You are the captain. You need rest. And you are my guest. And the woman I stole." He laid the blanket on the rug near the door. "Besides, I don't trust myself in that bed with you. Not yet." I blushed, turning away. I lay in his bed. It smelled like him, sea salt, tobacco, and sandalwood. Couldn't sleep. "Killian," I whispered into the dark. Why did you wait 3 years? If you were alive, why didn't you come for me sooner?" Silence stretched in the room. I thought he had fallen asleep. "I wasn't ready." His voice came from the floor, rough and quiet. "When I left you, I was a nobody, a deckhand with big dreams and empty pockets. I couldn't offer you anything but poverty. I wanted to build a kingdom for you, Elena. I wanted to be a king worthy of a queen." "I didn't want a kingdom," I said, tears pricking my eyes. I just wanted you. I know, he sighed. And that's why I came back today. I realized that all the gold in the world meant nothing if you were married to another man. He stood up. I saw his silhouette move to the bedside. He didn't touch me. He just stood there, guarding me. Sleep, Elena. Tomorrow I teach you how to hold a sword. If you're going to be the Pirate King's woman, you need to know how to kill. 12:30 CTA. The calm before the storm. As I drifted off to sleep, guarded by the most dangerous man in the world, I realized that the hardest battle wasn't against the Navy. It was against the fear that I might lose him again. We are sailing into dangerous waters, and Silas isn't going to stop until one of us hangs. If you are rooting for Killian and Elena to survive the coming war, hit the subscribe button and join our crew. We need every hand on deck for what comes next. The peace lasted exactly 2 days. I was on the deck, learning how to tie knots with Gibbs, the ship's oldest sailor, when the bell rang. Clang, clang, clang. Sail HO! The lookout screamed. British colors. Killian was at the helm in seconds. He raised his spyglass. Damn, he cursed. It's a frigate, the HMS Interceptor. Fast, heavily armed. I thought you said they couldn't follow us into the reefs. I shouted, running up to him. They shouldn't be able to, Killian growled, unless they have a pilot who knows these waters. Silas must have hired a traitor. A puff of white smoke appeared on the horizon. Seconds later, a whistling sound tore the air. Boom! Water exploded 20 feet from our hull, spraying us with foam. Battle stations, Killian roared. His voice changed. He wasn't the lover anymore. He was the commander. Run out the guns. Full canvas. Let's show them why they should have stayed in port. He turned to me. Elena, go to the cabin. Lock the door. No, I said, grabbing a belaying pin. I am part of this crew. Elena, this isn't a carriage ride. Splinters kill more men than bullets. Go. I can help the surgeon, I argued. I can carry powder. I am not hiding while you fight for my life. Killian looked at me. He saw the stubbornness in my eyes. He didn't have time to argue. Fine. Stay low. Help Doc in the mess hall. If they board us, you use the pistol I gave you. You aim for the head. Do you understand? Yes. He grabbed me by the back of the neck and kissed me hard. Stay alive. He turned back to the battle. Fire! The black horizon shuddered as 20 cannons fired at once. The smell of sulfur filled the air. I ran to the mess hall. It was already becoming a slaughterhouse. Men were coming down with shrapnel wounds, burns, and broken limbs. Hold him down. Doc, a bald man with blood-soaked apron, yelled at me. I need to extract the splinter. I held the shoulders of a screaming young sailor while Doc dug a piece of wood the size of a dagger out of his leg. I didn't vomit. I didn't cry. I worked. Above us, the battle raged. I heard the clash of steel. They had boarded. They're on the deck! Someone screamed down the hatch. I looked at the wounded men. They couldn't fight. I grabbed a pistol from the table. I checked the priming. Doc, I said, my voice shaking but firm. Keep working. I'll watch the door. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. A British Marine appeared, bayonet fixed, looking for stragglers. He saw me, a woman in blood-stained pirate clothes holding a gun. He laughed. Well, look at this prize. He stepped forward. I didn't hesitate. I remembered what Killian said. Aim for the head. I pulled the trigger. The kickback bruised my shoulder. The room filled with smoke. When it cleared, the Marine was on the floor, dead. I stood there, staring at the gun. I had just killed a man. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. Suddenly, Killian appeared at the top of the stairs, sword dripping red. He saw the dead Marine. He saw me holding the smoking pistol. He rushed down, checking me for wounds. Are you hurt? He demanded frantically. No, I whispered. I shot him. Killian looked at the dead man, then at me. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a fierce, terrifying pride. You defended the ship, he said, wiping a smudge of gunpowder from my cheek. You are one of us now, Elena. Truly. Did we win? I asked. We repelled them, Killian nodded grimly. But the interceptor was just a scout. They signaled the main fleet before we crippled their mast. He looked up at the ceiling toward the open sky. Admiral Vance knows exactly where we are. The hunt has begun. We reached Isla Sombra at dawn. It wasn't on any Royal Navy map. It was a jagged collection of rocks hidden inside a perpetual fog bank, a fortress built by outcasts for outcasts. As the black horizon docked, I looked at the port. It was a chaotic mess of rotting wood, hanging lanterns, and drunkards sleeping in the mud. It smelled of roasting pig, gunpowder, and bad decisions. "Welcome to paradise," Killian muttered, checking the load of his pistols. He turned to me. "Stay close, Elena. This isn't a ballroom. If someone looks at you wrong, you don't curtsy. You put your hand on your knife." "I don't have a knife," I whispered, clutching his arm. Killian pulled a jagged bone-handled dagger from his boot and pressed it into my hand. "Now you do. Don't hesitate to use it." We walked down the gangplank. The crew dispersed to spend their loot on wine and women. Killian led me toward the largest structure in the center of the town, a tavern built from the hull of a wrecked galleon. "We need supplies," Killian explained, "and information. If Vance is hunting us, the Pirate Council will know his movements." We pushed through the tavern doors. The noise inside was deafening. Fiddles playing, men shouting, glass breaking. But as soon as Killian stepped in, the noise died down. Every eye turned to the Pirate King. Then they turned to me, the woman in men's clothes with aristocratic features. Well, a voice purred from the shadows of a booth. "Look what the tide dragged in." A woman stood up. She was stunning in a terrifying way. Dark skin, hair braided with gold coins, and a red coat that barely covered a corset bristling with knives. Captain Morgana, the Red Witch of the South. I felt Killian stiffen beside me. "Morgana," Killian nodded stiffly. "Killian," she smiled, walking toward us with a predatory sway. She ignored me completely. She placed a hand on Killian's chest, her fingers tracing the scar on his neck. "I heard you died. I was about to drink a toast to your memory." "Disappointed?" Killian asked, removing her hand gently but firmly. "Intrigued," she corrected. Her eyes finally flicked to me. They were cold, assessing. "And who is this? A hostage? She smells like expensive soap and fear." "She is with me," Killian said, his voice dropping an octave, a warning tone. "She is not a hostage. She is my partner." Morgana laughed. It was a sharp, cruel sound. "Partner? You? The wolf who hunts alone? Don't make me laugh, darling. This is a noblewoman. A pet." She stepped closer to me, invading my personal space. "Go back to your castle, princess. This world will eat you alive." And Killian, he breaks pretty things. I felt my anger flare. I gripped the dagger Killian had given me. I didn't draw it, but I stood my ground. "I am not a pet," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "And I suggest you take a step back, Captain, unless you want to find out just how fast a princess can learn to bite." Morgana blinked, surprised. Then she smirked. "Feisty. I like that." We sat at a table in the back. Morgana joined us, uninvited. So, Morgana poured herself ale. "Admiral Vance. He burned the Iron Cove yesterday. He is tearing the ocean apart looking for you too." "We know," Killian said. "We need safe passage to the Eastern Straits." "Safe passage costs gold, Killian. Or favors." Morgana looked at him over the rim of her cup. "Remember the night in Havana? You owe me." I felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it nearly winded me. Havana, of course. Killian was a pirate king. He had a life before me, a life filled with women like Morgana, strong, dangerous women who belonged in this world. I looked at my hands. They were still soft, despite the dirt. I wasn't like them. Killian saw my expression. Under the table, his hand found mine. He squeezed it hard. "That debt is paid, Morgana," Killian said coldly. "I am here for business." If you can't help, we leave. Morgana sighed. Fine. But Vance isn't just hunting you. He has a new weapon. A massive warship. The Leviathan. It has cannons that can fire twice the distance of ours. If he catches you in open water, you are dead. We can outrun him, Killian said. Not this time. Morgana shook her head. He has a tracker. A mage on board. He knows exactly where you are. Killian slammed his fist on the table. A mage? The Navy outlawed magic. Silas is desperate, I realized aloud. He hates pirates more than he hates magic. He's breaking his own laws to kill us. Morgana looked at me with new respect. Smart girl. Yes, Silas wants his bride back. Or he wants her head. We left the tavern and walked back to the ship under the moonlight. The mood was heavy. Morgana, I said quietly. Who is she to you? Killian stopped walking. He turned to me on the dock. The waves lapped against the wood. She was an ally, Killian said. A friend once, in a life where I thought I had nothing to lose. She loves you, I said. I saw it in her eyes. She loves the legend, Killian corrected. She loves the Pirate King, the man who takes what he wants and leaves. She doesn't know me. He cupped my face with his rough hands. Elena, before I met you, I was a ghost. I drank, I fought, I sailed. I felt nothing. Morgana and we were just two drowning people clinging to driftwood. He leaned his forehead against mine. But you are the lighthouse. You are the only thing that guides me home. I don't want a pirate queen. I want the woman who drove a carriage off a cliff for me. I want you. I was jealous, I admitted. Good, Killian grinned, that wicked spark returning to his eyes. I like it when you fight for me. He kissed me. It was slow, deep, and reassuring. It washed away the doubts. But the moment was shattered by a scream. Fire! We spun around. The black horizon wasn't burning, but the ship next to it was. And on the horizon, emerging from the fog bank like a monster from the deep, was a ship unlike anything I had ever seen. It was massive, clad in iron plates, with black smoke pouring from its stacks. The Leviathan. They found us, Killian roared. To the ship. Now! We sprinted down the dock. Cannonballs began to rain down on Isla Sombra. The pirate haven was turning into an inferno. Morgana! I shouted, looking back at the tavern. She can take care of herself. Killian pulled me. We have to move before they block the harbor mouth. We jumped onto the black horizon. Cut the lines, Killian shouted to his crew. Forget the anchor. Cut it loose. The crew moved with panic speed. The sails unfurled. The Leviathan was closing in. It was a metal beast among wooden toys. Its cannons roared, destroying the docks we had just stood on. They are blocking the exit, Bax yelled from the helm. We are trapped in the bay. Killian ran to the wheel. There is another way out. The Devil's Throat. The narrow channel? Bax paled. Captain, that's suicide in the dark. The rocks will tear us apart. It's that or the iron ship. Killian spun the wheel hard to starboard. Elena, get to the stern chasers. We need to blind them with smoke. I ran to the back of the ship. I grabbed a torch. As we turned toward the jagged rocks of the Devil's Throat channel, I looked back. The Leviathan wasn't following us into the rocks. It stopped, and on the deck of the iron ship, illuminated by the fires of the burning city, stood a man in a pristine admiral's uniform. Beside him was a hooded figure holding a glowing staff. Governor Silas was there too. He saw me. He pointed a finger at me across the water. You can run, his gesture seemed to say, but there is nowhere left to hide. Killian steered us into the darkness of the rocks. The ship groaned, scraping against stone. Hold on, he screamed. We plunged into the treacherous channel, leaving the burning city behind. We were alive, but we were running out of ocean. The final battle wasn't going to be a chase. It was going to be a stand. We emerged from the Devil's Throat channel into open water, but we weren't safe. The sky had turned black. A hurricane was brewing in the west, churning the ocean into mountains of water. And behind us, tearing through the waves like a relentless predator, was the Leviathan. "We can't outrun them in this chop," Bax yelled, fighting the wheel. "Their engine doesn't care about the wind. We are dead in the water, Captain." Killian looked at the storm ahead. Then he looked at the iron ship closing in. "Stop the ship," Killian ordered. The crew froze. "Captain," I said, "haul wind. Drop the anchor." We turned and faced them. "Killian," I grabbed his arm. "That thing is made of iron. Our cannons will bounce off." "We aren't going to shoot them, Elena." Killian drew his cutlass, the steel singing in the rain. "We are going to board them." He climbed onto the railing, addressing his terrified crew. "They have iron plates. They have magic. But they are Navy men. They fight for a paycheck. We fight for our lives. We fight for freedom. Do you want to die running? Or do you want to die fighting?" The pirates roared. It was a sound of defiance against death itself. Killian jumped down and pulled me close. He kissed me hard, tasting of rain and adrenaline. "When we crash," he said, handing me a second pistol, "you find Silas, and you end this." "I will," I promised. The Leviathan smashed into our side. Wood splintered, iron screeched. The impact threw us to the deck. "Board!" Killian screamed. The battle was chaos. We swung onto the deck of the Leviathan. It was slick with rain and oil. The Admiral's soldiers were disciplined, holding formation. But we were desperate. Killian was a whirlwind of death, cutting through the lines to get to the quarterdeck where Admiral Vance stood. I fought my way toward the helm. I shot a soldier who tried to spear me. I ducked under a sword swing and slashed a man's leg. The dress-wearing noblewoman was gone. I was fighting like a pirate. Then I saw him. Governor Silas was standing near the mainmast, surrounded by elite guards. He wasn't fighting. He was watching, a cruel smile on his face. "Elena!" he shouted over the thunder. "Come here. Come back to me, and I will spare your savage." I reloaded my pistol. "I'd rather rot in hell." "Then rot you shall." Silas signaled his guards. 3 men charged me. I fired, dropping one. But the other 2 were too close. I backed up, tripping over a coil of rope. A sword raised above me. Bang! The guard's chest exploded. Morgana stood on the railing of our ship, holding a smoking musket. She had followed us. "Get up, princess," Morgana yelled. "Kill him." I scrambled to my feet. I ran at Silas. He drew his rapier. He was a fencer. I was a brawler. He lunged, aiming for my shoulder. "I'm going to enjoy breaking you again, Elena." I parried with my dagger, the force jarring my arm. He was stronger. He drove me back against the railing. The ocean churned below. "Look at your hero," Silas sneered, pointing. I looked. Killian was on his knees. The mage had pinned him with magical chains of light. Admiral Vance held a pistol to Killian's head. "No!" I screamed. Silas laughed. "It's over. Drop the knife, Elena. Be a good wife." I looked at Killian. He met my eyes. He shook his head. "Don't stop." I looked at Silas, the man who had sold my family, the man who treated me like property. "I am not a wife," I whispered. "I am a pirate." I didn't try to fence him. I did what Killian taught me. I kicked him hard between the legs. Silas doubled over, gasping. I grabbed his rapier with my bare hand, ignoring the cut, and yanked it from his grip. I spun it around and drove it through his chest. Silas gasped, eyes wide with shock. He looked down at the blade, then at me. "You!" He choked. "I object," I whispered. I pushed him. He toppled over the railing, falling into the dark, churning sea. Silas was dead, but Killian was still trapped. I picked up Silas's fallen pistol. I aimed at the mage holding Killian. My hands were shaking. The shot was impossible. The wind, the rain, the distance. "Guide my hand." I prayed to whatever God listened to sinners. I fired. The bullet struck the mage in the shoulder. His concentration broke. The magical chains shattered. Killian didn't waste a second. He swept Admiral Vance's legs, grabbed the Admiral's own sword, and pinned him to the deck. "Yield," Killian roared. "Yield or I sink this iron coffin with everyone on it." Vance looked at his dead mage. He looked at Silas gone. He looked at the pirate king holding a blade to his throat. "I yield," Vance whispered. The fighting stopped. Killian stood up. He walked over to me. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts. He looked exhausted. He looked at me, seeing the blood on my hands. He saw the empty space where Silas used to be. "Elena!" I dropped the sword. I collapsed into his arms. "He's gone." I sobbed into his wet coat. "He's gone." "I know." Killian held me tight, shielding me from the rain. "You did it. You saved us. We took the Leviathan's gunpowder. We took their gold. And then we disabled their rudder, leaving the mighty iron ship drifting in the storm. The storm broke at dawn. The black horizon was battered. The sails were torn, but she was afloat. I stood at the prow, wearing a new coat Killian had given me. A captain's coat, trimmed in gold. Killian walked up behind me. He wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "They will send another fleet," he warned softly. "We will be hunted for the rest of our lives. Let them come." I smiled, leaning back into him. "We have the fastest ship, and we have each other." Killian turned me around. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It wasn't the giant diamond Silas had given me. It was a ring made of twisted gold and black pearl. "I didn't get to finish the ceremony," Killian whispered. "Elena Sterling, will you sail with me? Until the edge of the world." "It's Elena Drake," I corrected, taking the ring. "And yes, to the edge of the world." He kissed me. The sun rose over the ocean, turning the water to gold. We weren't noble. We weren't safe. We were free, the pirate king and his queen. And the sea belonged to us,